20 verse 6.
Blessed and holy is he that had part in the first resurrection. On such the second death had no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.
Okay, so here we have that 1,000-year period again. And those who take part in the first resurrection, of such the second death hath no power. That's true salvation. Because the second death is when all nations, all the dead and the living and everyone is all called before the throne to be judged. That's after the millennial reign with Christ. All of the ones called from every nation, even the Quran speaks of that. And they're judged by their works. So, the first resurrection is only for Israelites, which means Paul, who was teaching the Gentiles, was now baptizing them unto the second resurrection. So, the Christians are being redeemed for the second resurrection. So now with the second resurrection, they have this testimony that they believed and they were baptized. You know, that could prevent them from being cast into the lake of fire. Personally, I prefer to be part of the first resurrection because on such the second death hath no power. You've passed. You've accepted the Christ in your lifetime. You've humbled yourself to do his will, and you've been redeemed. Therefore, you're part of the first resurrection. So when you die, what happens? Well, let's look at Hosea chapter 6, verse 1 and 2.
Come, let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, and he will heal us. He has smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight.
So here we have the third day again, and God is not linear. So let's open our minds to the mind of Christ. Because this third day we know represents Jesus the Christ being resurrected. It also represents the third day when the kingdom of David is being established. And it also represents our personal walk with Christ, because when we die, after 3 days, like Jesus, we will be resurrected. And he will bind us up, and in the third day he raise us to live in his sight. So this is a path that has been given to the children of Israel of the first resurrection. Now, when we get baptized, we learn the significance of this because, like Jesus, we fast for 40 days after we're baptized. And that 40-day fast is actually preparing us for our celestial reign with Christ. Because after 3 days we're risen, and like Jesus the Christ, he stuck around for 40 days, teaching and putting things in order before he ascended. So he's shown us the path of life, that do these things, and after 3 days, you also will be risen up, and be like unto the angels, being like the children of the resurrection, ascending souls. So after 40 days now, we ascend. So this song of baptism and Passover is not a regular song. You know, that's not what's sung in the churches today. We're actually preparing for the first resurrection. That's what it represents. Revelation 20 verse 5.
But the rest of the dead lived not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection.
Okay, so the rest of the dead live not again until after 1,000 years are finished. So all those who take part in the first resurrection are foreparents and stuff who may have been, God chooses in generations. It's not for us. God chooses.
Yes.
Right?
We don't know.
Right, like with Elijah the prophet. God said to him, I have a bunch of prophets you don't even know about. Don't worry about it. So this generation now, God is choosing people. This generation. And those who are sealed for the first resurrection after 3 days, you're raised. Or as we read earlier, those who are with him when he comes, or remain until he comes, will be caught up with the angels. So in other words, that mountain, you have the angels coming down, and you have the Israelites coming up to meeting on Mount Sinai, which is a spiritual mount. It's not a physical mount that everyone's going to run to. It's a spiritual mount. So the significance of the first resurrection is very, very intense, because it is true salvation. It's true salvation because the second death hath no power. If you're baptized as an Israelite, by an Israelite, you perfected your faith. Jesus said, "Suffer it so, for it is for us to fulfill our righteousness." So that now is passed on to us. In order to fulfill our righteousness, you must be born again of water and of the Spirit. What people don't realize is that Spirit is Israel. So if you're not born again of that Spirit as an Israelite, you're not part of the first resurrection. And that's why everyone in this Bible that baptized was an Israelite. If they weren't an Israelite, then you're getting baptized into something else, which is called the second death. It's a covenant of death. But we'll go into that one another day. So, what people don't realize is that Israel is both Lord and Christ, the man and the Spirit. That's the two-edged sword. So we have Jesus, or Yeshua, or however you want to pronounce it, as the physical representation of the Lamb, Israel. And then you have the Christ Spirit, which is the Lion, which is the spiritual representation of the Lamb, Israel. So, when Jesus said, "I am in the Father, and the Father is in me," he's saying, "I am the Lamb, and the Lion is in me."
The physical and the spiritual.
The physical and the spiritual. Exactly. Acts chapter 2, verse 35 at the bottom here.
Therefore, let all the house of Israel know assuredly that God hath made that same Jesus, whom ye have crucified, both Lord and Christ.
Right. And Jesus said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." He wasn't saying he was God. He's saying he's the Son of God. Israel is thy son, even thy firstborn. So, Lord of the ages, the Ancient of Days, this thought that the earth is only 6,000 years old, I'm not into theologies and ideologies. People can believe what they want. If they want to believe the world is 6,000 years, that's fine. But I'm into revelation. So the revelation that the reality that something happened before Adam and Eve. Because God said on the 6th day when he made man, he said, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." Replenish means refill or repopulate. Which means something happened before. Otherwise you wouldn't have to say replenish the earth, refill it, repopulate it. And in context, some might say, well, refill doesn't really mean, what does refill really mean? And they'll pull up the Strong's Concordance and come with all these, whatever. But the reality is, when God spoke to Noah and his sons, he said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth."
Yes.
Okay, so we know now there was a flood. So you have to repopulate. So when he said replenish the earth, he means repopulate. So there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. This Bible here is giving us a 6,000-year history. This is our history. But the Ancient of Days is eternal. We ought not to try and take the Most High and compress him into 6,000 years, that's just showing that we have a limited understanding of the Most High.
Correct.
It says He is eternal. Eternal is not 6,000 years. Eternal is eternal. So let's look at some of the ages before we go back to the ancient ages. So right now, those who were born from 1944 to 1960, right now they would be between either 60 and 76 years of age. This is the baby boomers, age. This is after World War II. So we know what happened, right? Everyone came home and they got to booming. That's right. Okay,
At that
so
time there were about 3 women to 1 man. Because the men died out, right?
That's
so
right.
the one who remained alive, many living in glory.
So there are times when a man actually can take on more than one wife, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So in the Generation X, those are people born from 1961 to 1980 who would be 40 to 59 years of age. So if you turn 40 this year, you're part of Generation X. And Generation S is significant because this generation is the generation where,
Lots of stuff are revealed from.
yeah, this generation lives through all of the other, the information age, the internet wasn't even created yet, 1980, right? So, imagine you were born before the internet existed. Those who are younger might find that a little strange because the next generation, Generation Y, also known as the millennials, is everyone born from 1981 to 1994. So you would be 26 to 39 years of age. And that's the information age. So they were born with the internet. Right? We live most of our lives in Generation X, the baby boomers. There was no such thing as the internet. We had typewriters.
Yeah.
Right? The information age now has computers. So these millennials have a different mindset because they're brought up with this technology.
Okay, it was dial-up. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I wasn't all the way there yet.
Yeah.
It was just starting out.
So then we have Generation Z, which is 1995 to 2015. So this is the new generation, Generation Z, in the digital age. They would be anywhere from 5 years old to 25 years old. And digital age, meaning they're born in the time where everything's digital, with your cell phone, my laptops, what do you call it, tablets and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's beyond the information age, the digital age. You got babies. I see little 5-year-olds with phones and with they can get around the tablet better than I can. They can barely speak, but they can find videos and everything. Blows my mind.